Over the years, LEGO has made some absolutely fantastic castle sets, but they've also made quite a few stinkers. So today we're going to be looking at some of the worst castles that LEGO ever made. Starting off first with the Witch's Magic Manor. This set comes to us from the before times, 1997 to be exact, and I have no idea what the designers were thinking with this one. It uses a bunch of those big ugly rock pieces, and really not much else. A lot of people will clown on this set and the Fright Nights in general for their wacky designs, but in my opinion, the only redeemable quality of this set was the helicopter. I mean, come on, you can't deny that a helicopter controlled by a magic ball is a pretty novel idea. However, that doesn't save the rest of the set from looking like actual garbage. And I don't think you can even blame this on it being a product of its time because LEGO had some great sets come out in 1997. Maybe not. Now, since we're talking about the worst castles that LEGO ever made, I'd like to bring up my favorite faction to make fun of, the Royal Knights. Now, I won't deny, they had a couple of okay sets, but their minifigures just straight up look like cosplayers. I don't know what they were going for with these torso prints, like, at all. And oh my god, don't even get me started on that lion shield. LEGO has a really weird fascination with lion heraldry, and these guys right here started one of the worst trends in all of LEGO Castle history. This sigil was brought back, I want to say like maybe 5 times in some way or another. And it may seem like I'm exaggerating here, but I mean look, they just released a new fridge magnet for the Royal Knights a couple of months ago. LEGO has so many great and fan favorite factions, but they still insist on using this design for some reason. They even had an Easter egg to one of the sets in the medieval town square earlier this year. I don't know. All that's to say, the Royal Knights are pretty cool, I guess. So if we're talking about actual full castles that just suck, the one that always comes to mind for me is none other than the Blue Lion Knights castle from 2013. At first glance, this set looks pretty inoffensive, but if you look at it for more than just a couple of seconds, you'll notice that the entire build is made up of these windowed panel pieces, which in moderation are pretty useful for beefing up your walls and keeping the price of the set down. But in this case, they just went way overboard, and once you notice it, you can't unsee it. This set is just basic as all hell, and it's littered with that ugly lion's head in an even more annoying art style than the original. I hate it. I do love these guys though, and their little dragon catapult is very cute. So far, I've only really looked at the commonly hated sets in the community, so now I feel the need to piss off all the senior citizens watching. And to do that, we've got to go all the way back to 1993. The Dragon Masters are often held in pretty high regard for their minifigures and introducing the classic LEGO Dragon. But I have to ask you, have you actually looked at their sets? For example, the Dragon Wagon came out in 1993. This set has an admittedly cool premise, but the actual build itself is so frail. Just 4 years later, we'd get the Trader Transport from the Fright Nights, which has a similar premise, but it just looks way nicer. Also, a black dragon is way cooler than a green one, we all know this. Whenever you hear people talk about the juniorization of LEGO during the 90s, most people will point to the Fright Nights and their extremely blocky looking sets. But to me, Megisto's Tower shows just how bad LEGO was getting in the 90s. Yes, the printed yellow dragons look really nice, but look at the actual build itself. It's made up of 2 of those big rock pieces, and the tower itself could easily be mistaken for a Duplo set. Honestly, I think this set would be really cool to see remade into a modern set because the idea itself is really strong, and I would love to see how they tackle remaking Megisto's iconic Pimpmobile. Now, this video would not be complete if I didn't at least complain a little bit about Knight's Kingdom. If you aren't familiar with this abomination of a castle theme, let me give you a little bit of context. In the early 2000s, LEGO hit it big with Bionicle, and they captured a huge audience of mostly undiagnosed autistic kids all across the world. People loved these things, and while I was never a big Bionicle fan myself, I have so many memories of watching the movies at one of my friends' houses. That man never missed an opportunity to play the Mask of Light at a sleepover. If you grew up in the 2000s, then I'm sure you have similar memories. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is that Bionicle was massive, and LEGO wanted to cash in on that success with a new castle theme. So they made this. As you'd imagine, LEGO Castle fans really hated this, especially the older ones. And Bionicle fans were pretty unimpressed to say the least. And I don't blame them at all. Bionicle was at its peak in 2004 when these came out, and Castle fans had been waiting for a regular theme for years at that point. So this release was just really disappointing across the board. Over the theme's run, we'd get more and more action figures and a couple of cool sets here and there, but as a whole, this has got to be one of the worst castle themes to ever come out. Now, they didn't just release action figures, they also had classic system-style sets come out too. Like this gross Lion Knight's castle, which took the exact same lion design from earlier and turned it 90 degrees, somehow making it look even worse again. I seriously don't understand LEGO's obsession with this damned lion head. It feels like a cruel inside joke that's been going on for way too long now. Not all was bad though, as we did get a couple of cool sets near the end of the theme's life. Vladik and his knights will forever hold this theme on their backs. Okay, I feel like I've dogged on the older castle themes enough, so now we've got to talk about my childhood castle theme, Fantasy Era. Now, if you've seen any of my videos before, you may know that I love the trolls, but a dark cloud looms over the rest of this theme from just over a height of 3 feet tall, the Fantasy Era dwarves. The trolls had unique barbaric armor and sand green skin, the skeletons had a necromancer and a fire-breathing dragon, the crown knights had regal, beautifully printed armor, and a bustling village to call home. So what did the dwarves have? Well, they had the hand-me-downs of crown knight squires. Every single dwarf minifigure from Fantasy Era reused an already existing torso. Most of them came from the Crown Knights, but they also stole a bunch of the torsos straight from the Viking theme that had just ended. The only thing that their figs had going for them was their admittedly very cool looking winged helmets. And in the set department, they really didn't have much other than the Dwarf Mines set, which was probably the best castle of the 4 factions, but the sets that they had to go with it were sparse. For example, the trolls had a warship and a battle wheel. The skeletons had their own warship and a skeleton horse-drawn carriage. And the Crown Knights had their own village and a standalone drawbridge set. The dwarves only had a single catapult as their side set, easily making it the most underdeveloped faction of the 4. But with all that being said, I still really like their inclusion in Fantasy Era, but they could have used a lot more love. Maybe if Fantasy Era got a 4th wave of sets, we could have seen some great smaller dwarf sets, possibly to go against the legendary elf faction that was teased for Fantasy Era. But that's a story for another video. Please let me know about how you think my opinion is wrong in the comments below. And as always, thank you so much for watching.